When an old billionaire returns to his family compound disguised as a broke man, he hopes to reconnect quietly. But instead of love, he receives coldness, insults, and betrayal from the very people he once built a house for. Just when they think he's finished, he reveals a truth that shakes the entire family to its core. Welcome back. As you enjoy the story, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also share with your friends. Now back to the story. His name was Frank. In the past they called him Brother Frank, Uncle Frank, or Big Man. But that was 10 years ago, before he stopped visiting, before the story stopped and people started guessing. Maybe he's dead. Maybe he's in prison. Maybe he lost everything. Nobody knew the truth. Frank was alive. Very much so. Richer than they could imagine. But he was tired. Not just of the lies or the loneliness, but of not knowing who really loved him. The more money he made, the more people used him. Family called only when they needed help. Friends disappeared after taking his loans. His name was always on someone's urgent problem. So one day, Frank packed a small duffel bag, left his mansion in Johannesburg, and took a flight back to Nigeria. No one knew he was coming. Not his brothers. Not his sisters. Not even his late cousin's son Jude, who now lived in the big family house in Ikeja. Frank didn't call ahead. He wanted to see their reaction. No filters. No fake smiles. It was a hot Tuesday afternoon when he arrived. The sun burned like fire. His clothes were simple, a faded polo, brown sandals, and trousers with dust from the airport road. He knocked twice on the black iron gate. A young man came out chewing gum and staring at his phone. "Yes," the boy said, not looking up. "I'm looking for Jude," Frank replied, wiping sweat from his face. The boy raised an eyebrow. "You be who?" "Oh, I'm his uncle. I used to live here long ago." The boy sized him up. "Wait." 10 minutes later, Jude walked to the gate wearing basketball shorts and slippers. He looked confused for a second, then forced a smile. "Uncle Frank?" Frank smiled. "Yes. It's been long." "Wow. It's been years. Oh. You look different." Jude scratched his head. "You're just coming from the airport?" "Yes." Welcome, welcome." Jude opened the gate wider. "Sorry, the main house is full. My wife's sisters are around. But there's space in the BQ. You don't mind staying there, ABI?" Frank hesitated. "It's okay." Jude didn't offer to carry his bag. The boy went back to his phone. Frank walked alone to the small building at the back of the compound. The boys' quarters. The BQ. The room smelled like wet wood and insect spray. One plastic chair sat near a rusty fan. There was no bed, only a thin mattress on the floor. The light switch didn't work. Frank looked around. No one followed him. No one offered food or water. That night, the rain started. He placed a bucket under the leaking part of the roof. A rat ran across his feet. The mattress was damp. Still he lay down. And smiled. "So this is how they see me now," he whispered. "Good." The next morning he woke up with mosquito bites all over his arms. He heard laughter from the main house. Music. Someone was frying eggs. Frank stepped out, walked toward the main building and knocked gently. No response. He knocked again. Finally, Jude's wife, Sandra, opened the door holding a baby. She looked him up and down. "Oh, good morning." "Good morning. Please, do you have small hot water I can use to bathe?" She sighed. Let me ask the help. We're using gas now and it's expensive." "Oh." Frank nodded. "It's okay. Even cold water is fine." She closed the door without a word. Frank stood there for a while. By afternoon, Jude gave him a used SIM card and said, "In case you want to call anyone." Frank thanked him. Nobody asked him where he had been. Nobody asked what happened. They all assumed he was broke. They treated him like he was a burden. That evening, a girl from the neighborhood came to the gate. She was selling puff puff. She looked about 13. Frank smiled and bought 2 pieces. "Thank you, sir," she said, curtsying. "You live around here?" he asked. "Yes. My mummy washes clothes for madam in the big house. Sometimes I help her." Frank nodded. "What's your name?" "Blessing." She became his first friend since coming back. As the days passed, Frank kept observing. Sandra complained about food bills. Jude avoided long conversations. Their children mocked his clothes behind his back. Once he heard Sandra say, "I don't even know what that old man came back with. Did he lose all his money?" Frank smiled quietly. He didn't say a word. He waited. One day he walked to a nearby cyber cafe. Asked the attendant to print out a document. A simple property deed. Another day he paid a carpenter to fix the leaking roof, with cash. Jude asked, Where did you get money from? Frank replied, I saved a little before things got bad. The whole house went quiet for 2 seconds. At night, Frank would sit alone on a wooden stool outside the BQ. He stared at the stars. No one ever joined him. He was invisible in the home he helped build. But he wasn't done yet. They thought they were testing him. They had no idea the test was theirs. Frank had spent 1 full week in the BQ. 7 days of pretending. 7 days of watching. 7 days of being ignored, overlooked, and laughed at like a beggar who refused to leave. But he didn't complain. He just kept watching. The family house was big, 8 bedrooms, 2 parlors, a balcony that overlooked the street. It was painted cream with a black roof. The gate was tall and made of iron, and there was a security man named Usman who spent most of the day sleeping. Frank built this house. Nobody remembered. Well, maybe they remembered, but it was easier to forget. Back then, Frank had sent money every month from South Africa. After their parents died, he paid Jude's school fees, paid the house rent, sent money for food, sent more when they wanted to buy land. Later, he sent even more to build the house. He never visited. He never asked for repayment. He just trusted them. Now, sitting under the same roof, they acted like he was a stranger. One night, he was returning from outside when he heard voices in the kitchen. The window was open. He paused. Sandra said, I'm tired. Why is he still here? Jude replied, What do you want me to do? He's my uncle. Sandra continued, Your broke uncle. You don't see how the children are even scared of him? He looks like someone who sleeps under the bridge. Jude responded, You think I'm happy about it? I just don't want people to say I chased him away. Sandra added, Well, he can't stay here for free forever. If he doesn't have a plan, he should go back to wherever he came from. Frank walked away before he heard more. He didn't cry. He didn't even feel angry. He just nodded slowly. They failed. One by one. The next day he washed his own clothes by hand in a plastic basin. Sandra passed by and laughed. Ah, Uncle Frank, you're still strong, oh. You even day wash. Frank smiled. Yes, I still have small energy left. She walked away. That same evening Jude came to the BQ. Uncle, can I talk to you? Frank said, Of course. Jude stood awkwardly in the doorway. You know things are a bit tight now, school fees, food stuff, all that. Maybe if you know anyone that can help you, like an old friend, or church people, it might be time to reach out. Frank looked at him. You want me to leave? No, not like that. I'm just saying, it's been almost 2 weeks. Frank nodded. Don't worry. I'll make arrangements soon. Okay. No vex, oh uncle. Later that night, Frank opened his email on his small phone. He had over 500 unread messages. Bank updates. Investment reports. One from his lawyer with the subject line, Draft of Revised Will, Urgent Confirmation Needed. He didn't open it yet. He wasn't done. That weekend the compound was full. Jude's friends came over to drink. Music blasted from a speaker. Frank sat quietly outside his room listening. One man laughing loudly said, Jude, you lucky oh. See the house way you day live. Your uncle build MABI? Jude smiled but said nothing. Another man said, That one way come back, the one way look like carpenter. Nah him? Sandra cut in, That one? Don't mind him, Jer. He didn't build anything. That time he just sent small money from outside. He was never serious. Frank heard everything. He didn't flinch. He was used to people rewriting stories. But not everyone in the house was cruel. There was Blessing, the puff-puff girl. She came every 2 days with her plastic bowl. Frank always bought 5 pieces even when he wasn't hungry. One day she brought him a small gift, a cheap hand fan decorated with flowers. I saw it in the market, she said shyly. It was N300. I bought it for you because I know the heat in your room is too much. Frank looked at the gift for a long time before saying anything. Blessing, thank you. This means a lot. He gave her N500. She refused at first, but he insisted. That evening he sat outside fanning himself with it and smiling like a child. The next morning Sandra called a family meeting. It was a trap. Frank sat quietly at the back of the parlor. Sandra did most of the talking. I think we need to be honest. Uncle Frank, we're not chasing you away. But things are hard. If you want to stay, maybe you can contribute. Even if it's just helping with school runs or small house chores. Jude added, Yes, that way the kids also see you as useful. Frank smiled. No problem. I'll think about it. He stood up and walked back to the BQ. His hand clenched the key in his pocket. The real key. The one that opened his private apartment in Lekki. Fully furnished. Always running light. Empty. Waiting. 2 days later, Sandra accused him of stealing N2000 from her purse. She didn't say it directly, but her eyes said it. Her tone. The way she stared at him when she searched the parlor. Even Jude said, "Uncle, are you sure you didn't take it by mistake? Maybe you thought it was yours?" Frank smiled. "No. But I'll help you look." They never found the money. But the damage was done. Frank decided. It was time. That night, Frank sent one message to his lawyer: "Finalize the change. The house belongs to me. Give them 7 days' notice. Also, include Blessing and her mother in the new will." They passed the test. It had been exactly 3 weeks since Frank walked through the compound gate with a dusty bag. Since then, the treatment hadn't changed. If anything, it got worse. The children whispered that he smelled. Sandra sprayed air freshener after he passed by. Jude barely greeted him anymore. The last time anyone offered him food was 11 days ago. But Frank didn't mind. He had already seen all he needed to see. And now, it was time to act. On Monday morning, Jude was in the parlor watching football highlights when a black SUV parked outside the gate. A tall, dark-skinned man in a charcoal suit stepped out. His face was calm but serious. He had a leather folder in one hand and a brown envelope in the other. He knocked twice. Usman, the gate man, scrambled to open. "Good morning, sir," the man said. "Morning. I'm looking for Mr. Jude Collins." "That's me," Jude said, standing up with a frown. The man nodded. "I'm Barrister Roland. From Harrison and Gray Associates." Jude's eyes widened. "Lawyer?" "Yes. I have a legal notice for you and your household." He handed over the sealed brown envelope. Sandra walked out from the kitchen, drying her hands. "What's going on?" The lawyer turned to her. "Good morning, Ma. Kindly gather your family. This concerns everyone living here." Frank stood quietly near the door frame of the BQ watching. 10 minutes later, everyone was seated in the parlor. Even the children were quiet. The lawyer opened his folder. "This property, house, land, and compound, is currently listed under the name Mr. Franklin Collins. That is Mr. Jude's uncle." Sandra interrupted. "Wait, what do you mean? My husband is the owner of this house." The lawyer didn't flinch. He pulled out copies of the property documents. "No, Ma. Mr. Frank Collins financed the land purchase, construction, and legal paperwork. Here is the signed deed, C of O, and bank transfers." Jude stood up. "That's not possible. He sent money, yes, but I'm the one who built this house." The lawyer turned calmly to Frank. "Mr. Collins, do you confirm ownership of this property?" Frank nodded. "Yes. Every kobo was from me. I just never said anything." The room went still. Sandra looked like she had seen a ghost. The lawyer continued. "This letter is a formal 7-day notice to vacate the property." Sandra screamed. "What?" Jude stared at Frank. "Uncle, is this a joke?" Frank looked at him, calm, tired, but firm. "I gave you people everything. I left the house for 10 years. Never disturbed anyone. Came back with nothing but my name. And you treated me like a stranger. Like a beggar." He stood slowly. "You forgot I built this house. Now I'm reminding you." Sandra jumped up. "You want to throw us on the street? After everything? What kind of wicked man are you?" Frank turned to her. "Did you ask that question when you accused me of stealing N2000? Or when you said I looked like someone from under the bridge?" She stuttered. I didn't mean it like that." "You meant every word." Jude sank into the chair. "Uncle, please. You know how life is. People make mistakes." "Yes," Frank said. "And now you're about to live with yours." That evening, Jude tried to plead again. He came to the BQ while Frank was packing a small bag. "Uncle, I know we messed up. But this is still our home." Frank zipped his bag. "You never saw it as mine until today." Jude swallowed. "Uncle, I don't even know what to say." Frank smiled faintly. "You don't need to say anything." He pulled out an envelope from his back pocket. "This is the only thing that matters now." 3 days later, the family packed their belongings. Frank didn't ask them to go far, just leave the house. He arranged for movers to take their things. He even gave Jude some cash. "I'm not doing this out of wickedness," he said quietly. "I'm doing it to set things right." Sandra didn't say thank you. Her eyes burned with bitterness. On the 6th day, Frank sat alone in the compound. The air was quiet again. No shouting. No gossip. No pretending. Blessing came to the gate with her puff-puff tray. Frank waved her in. She smiled. "I heard you're the real owner of this house, sir." Frank chuckled. You heard correctly. She looked around. So you're rich? He nodded. Yes. She looked down. You don't act like them. You're kind. Frank smiled. I was poor in their eyes. That's when I saw clearly. The next day a van parked outside. Two women stepped out, Blessing's mother and another neighbor who used to work as a cleaner. Frank handed her a key. This room is yours now. You and your daughter. I've seen how you work. I want you to stay here and rest for once. The woman covered her mouth in shock. Sir, no one has ever. You deserve it, Frank said. And Blessing, she reminded me what love feels like. As the sun set, Frank stood at the balcony of the house he built. He wasn't smiling for show. This time he smiled because it was real. The house was full again. But this time, with people who cared. Jude sat in his friend's one-room apartment, staring at the ceiling. No one was calling him anymore. Not even his church people. And Frank? Frank hadn't blocked him. But silence can be louder than a slap. It had been 2 weeks since the eviction. Jude, Sandra, and their 2 children had moved into a small flat in Egbeda, owned by one of Jude's old secondary school friends. It was a cramped 2-bedroom with no generator and one small standing fan. They shared a bathroom with neighbors. The walls had water stains. The ceiling dripped during rain. The change hit like a brick. No more AC. No more DSTV. No more gateman or house help. No more my house to boast about. The worst part? No one called to ask what happened. Sandra blamed everyone but herself. If only you had stood up to that man, she snapped one morning. Jude replied calmly, he wasn't just that man. He was the one who built everything we enjoyed. Sandra hissed. So because of small offense he threw us out? Small offense. Jude shook his head. He remembered the day Frank slept in a leaking room and they didn't even offer him a plate of food. He remembered watching the old man wash clothes while they played music inside. He remembered ignoring his own children when they laughed at Frank's shoes. It wasn't small. It was a pattern. And they were the authors. Meanwhile, back in the Acacia compound, Frank's life took a new shape. The house was quiet again but not lonely. Blessing and her mother Grace had moved into the back quarters. Frank gave the mother a job helping him clean and manage small errands. He also arranged for Blessing to attend a private school in the area. For the first time in years, Frank had company that didn't make him feel like a walking ATM. They had simple conversations. Laughed at small jokes. Ate together in the kitchen, not separate corners of the house. Felt strange but good. One Saturday morning, Frank sat on the balcony, sipping tea. Blessing walked in with a drawing she made in school. It's our house, she said proudly. You're here. Mummy is here. I'm here. And the sun is smiling. Frank looked at the sketch. There was no money in the picture. No cars. No bags of rice or gold chains. Just 3 people. Together. He blinked a few times. Then said, This is beautiful. Later that afternoon, Frank's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. But something said pick. It was Jude. Hello. Uncle? Frank was silent for a moment. Then, yes. I just wanted to check on you. Frank leaned back. I'm fine. And you? Pause. We're managing. I just wanted to say thank you for not embarrassing us. For still giving us time to move out. I'm sorry. Truly. Frank didn't speak for a while. Then he said, How's your wife? She's adjusting. Not happy. But trying. Frank said, Good. Everyone needs time to see clearly. Some longer than others. Jude lowered his voice. Uncle, do you think there's a chance you could forgive us? Frank's reply was slow. Careful. Forgiveness doesn't always mean going back to how things were. Jude was silent. Frank added, But yes, I forgive you. Just don't repeat the same mistake with the next person who walks through your door needing help. That evening, Frank made a new journal entry in his old leather book. You don't truly know people until you have nothing to offer them. I had to become broke to see their real faces. But sometimes the worst treatment leads you to the best people. Like Blessing. Like peace. Meanwhile, Sandra hadn't changed much. One day, while cooking with the last bit of gas they had, she muttered to Jude, If he had just let us stay, we could have helped him clean up the place and even take care of him. Jude didn't answer. Because deep down he knew the truth, they had the chance. But they blew it. The children asked, When are we going back to our real house? Sandra said, Soon maybe. Jude said, Never. That wasn't our house. It was never ours. He didn't say it with anger. Just reality. Back at the compound, Frank started something new. He opened the front room of the house every Saturday as a free mentorship center for youths in the neighborhood. No fanfare. No social media. Just a whiteboard, chairs, and his laptop. He taught about money, business, integrity, mistakes he made, things no one taught him. And each week more people came. Not because he was rich, but because he listened. One day a boy asked him, "Why are you helping us, sir?" Frank smiled. "Because when I was younger, someone helped me. And when I got older, my own family forgot me. So now, I'm building a new one." Frank had started to enjoy silence. The compound was peaceful. Blessing's laughter echoed through the halls. Her mother, Grace, had turned the boys' quarters into a clean, comfortable space. The front room of the main house now served as a mini hub. Young people came in on weekends eager to learn something new, not take something away. Frank was finally living. Not just existing. Not just paying bills and solving other people's emergencies. He was 71. But for the first time in a long time he felt light. Until that Saturday morning. The bell rang at exactly 9:02 a.m. Blessing peeked out from the kitchen window and shouted, "Uncle Frank, people are at the gate." Frank stepped outside slowly. A strange quiet had come over the compound. When he reached the front gate and opened it slightly, the smile dropped from his face. Standing there, bags in hand, looking tired and beaten, were Jude, Sandra, and their 2 children. They were sweating. Clothes wrinkled. Faces sunken. Jude spoke first. "Uncle, please." Frank didn't say anything. Just opened the gate wider. They walked in slowly as if the ground might reject them. Sandra couldn't meet his eyes. Inside the parlor, no one spoke for almost a minute. Then Jude finally said, "We lost the flat. My friend's brother came back from abroad, and they asked us to leave." Frank nodded. "I see. We've tried to manage. I even started driving Bolt. But the car had an accident." Sandra's small trade finished. "And," Frank raised a hand, "I'm not asking for a list of what went wrong. I just want to know, why are you really here?" Sandra opened her mouth, but Jude spoke first. "We need shelter. That's the truth. Even if it's just the BQ." Frank looked at the same woman who once called the BQ useless, and told her children to stay away from it because it smelled like old man sweat. He turned to her. "Sandra?" She looked up for the first time. We made a mistake. I didn't know it then. But I see it now." Frank didn't smile. He didn't frown either. He just said, "Let me think about it." They left that afternoon. Frank didn't let them stay, not yet. He wasn't being wicked. He just needed time. Later that night, Grace came to him in the kitchen. "They looked hungry," she said softly. "I know. Will you forgive them?" Frank stirred his tea slowly. "I already did. But forgiveness doesn't always mean restoration. They need to feel the weight of their actions first." Grace nodded. 3 days later, Frank sent them a message, "Come back." Only Jude. Alone. When Jude arrived, Frank didn't sit him down in the parlor. He took him to the backyard. They both sat on a bench under a mango tree. Frank asked one question. "What would you do differently if I gave you another chance?" Jude replied without stammering. "I'd serve. I'd listen. I'd teach my children to honor people, not just respect money. I'd tell them the full story of who built our home. And I'd never let my wife rewrite it." Frank watched him closely. Then he reached into his pocket and handed Jude a key. "Not to the BQ," he said. "To the boys' room in the main house. You'll stay there for now. Alone." Jude looked confused. "What about?" "Your wife and kids will come later. First, I need to see you rebuild yourself. I need to see if your words are real." Jude nodded, eyes moist. "Thank you, Uncle." Over the next few days, Frank gave him small tasks. He mowed the lawn, painted part of the fence, cleaned the water tank. He worked without complaints. Grace watched him and said, "He's learning." Frank said, "I hope so." Eventually, Sandra and the children returned. Frank allowed them to move into the old BQ. This time, Sandra didn't complain. She cleaned it herself. She even greeted Grace properly and said, "Thank you for looking after Uncle." It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. One day, during his weekend mentorship session, Frank asked a group of young people, "What's the one thing more dangerous than poverty?" Many hands went up. He pointed to a boy. "Pride, sir." Frank smiled. "Correct. Pride has no cure. Only consequences. But humility can open locked gates." Later that week, Frank sat with Blessing under the mango tree. She showed him her school report, 4 A's and 2 B's. He hugged her. "You're going to be someone big," he said. "I just want to be kind like you," she replied. Frank looked away quickly so she wouldn't see his eyes well up. That evening he added a new line to his journal. They came back through the same gate they shut me out from. This time not as kings, but as men ready to be taught. Frank knew he didn't have many years left, but he had one more thing to give. And this time he wanted everyone gathered. One letter. One will. One final decision. This was the last gift. The compound felt different now. Peaceful, but not fake. The air didn't carry tension anymore. People greeted with sincerity. The walls had fresh paint. The lawn looked alive again. Jude still worked around the house without being told. Sandra slowly but surely had softened. She no longer avoided Grace. In fact, some mornings they cooked together. The children had stopped mocking Uncle Frank. They now sat with him for story time, asking questions about, "How things were in your time, sir?" Blessing started calling him Grandpa Frank. Frank would smile and say, "You're the first person to ever call me that." One evening as Frank lay in bed, he felt a sharp pain in his chest. Not deep. Not alarming. Just enough to remind him, "You're not as strong as before." He got up slowly, took his old leather journal and began to write a letter. This time it wasn't a journal entry. It was a goodbye. A week later, Frank called for a family meeting. He invited Jude, Sandra, their kids, Blessing, Grace, and even some of the youths from his weekend mentorship group. Everyone gathered in the parlor. Frank stood before them, wearing a plain white kaftan. He looked at everyone, one after the other, before sitting down. "I don't have long," he said. "Don't panic, it's not today. But it's coming." No one spoke. He pulled out an envelope. "This is my final gift. And it's not just about property or money. It's about setting things right." He handed the envelope to Jude. "Don't open it yet. I'll read it." He cleared his throat and began. "To my family and new friends, I lived a life full of giving, sometimes without thinking. I gave to people who saw me as a wallet, not a person. I gave love to people who only returned silence. But in the end it led me here. To peace. This house will remain in the care of those who value people more than property. Grace and her daughter Blessing are now co-beneficiaries of this house. Jude, you disappointed me. But you also showed growth. I watched you humble yourself when you had the chance to lie or run. So I'm giving you another chance. You will manage the property. But you will not own it, yet. Earn it. Sandra, your tongue cut me deeper than any sickness could. But I see a change. A small one. Keep growing it. As for the mentorship center, I've set up a trust fund to run it for 10 years. Let it be a place where the next Jude or Frank can come and learn without fear or shame. And to Blessing, my light. You reminded me what pure love looks like. This house is as much yours as it is mine. Lastly, when I go, don't cry too long. I lived long enough to find the truth I was searching for. That was all I ever wanted." The room was quiet. Sandra was already crying. Not because of guilt. This time it was something deeper. She was letting go of shame. Jude stared at the envelope in his hands like it was gold, but also like it was a mirror. Blessing came forward and hugged Frank tightly. "Don't go, Grandpa." He smiled. "We all go someday. But now I can go in peace." 2 months later, Frank passed away in his sleep. No pain. No drama. Just quiet. Blessing found him in his bed, a smile still on his lips, the journal clutched in his hand. At the funeral, the crowd was larger than anyone expected. Not because he was a billionaire, but because of how he made people feel. Simple, honest, human. Former neighbors. Youths he mentored. Even people he once helped silently through anonymous donations. One young man said, "He taught me how to forgive my father." A girl added, "He gave me a laptop to start my design business. I never even asked him. He just saw my drawing and said, 'You need better tools.'" After the burial, Jude stood by the gate watching people leave. Grace walked up beside him. "You okay?" He nodded. "I will be." She handed him a folded note. "He left this. Said I should give it to you last." Jude opened it. It was just one line, written in Frank's shaky handwriting: "Make sure no one ever feels in this house the way I felt in yours." And that became the rule. The mentorship center grew. Blessing finished secondary school with top grades. Grace opened a food business with help from Frank's trust. Jude became a quiet man, firm, kind, no longer proud. Sandra taught Sunday school, focusing on humility. The house didn't just change hands. It changed hearts. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe and turn on your notification for more. See you soon.